Hey everybody, this is Ted Forbes from The Art of Photography, and I want to do a video today to talk about some recent news about Vivian Maier and what is going on with the estate and some recent developments with that. I did an episode on Vivian Maier several months ago, and I knew when I did it, it would be somewhat controversial. And I have very mixed feelings about Vivian Maier, which is neither here nor there, but if you're interested in seeing that episode, I will link it up at the end of this video. But anyway, what's interesting about Vivian Maier is you have somebody who a couple years ago, right around the time she died, her work was purchased at auction by several collectors, one of which who is kind of the big player. He produced the movie recently that was done on her life. And you don't have immediate family or anybody to run the estate or deal with the copyright end of things. And so the other day I got an email from Ronald van der Plas, who is a friend of mine who watches the show, and he brought to my attention this New York Times article that has come out. Now, in recent months, there is a new player in this game, and he's got the craziest name ever. This is David Deal, who is, of course, an attorney. Anyway, David Deal is a former photographer. Apparently, he shot commercially for about 20 years. He's very familiar with the work of Miss Maier. And David has an interesting take on this because he is saying he has found a new heir to this estate. So there's somebody in the family that wasn't known before. And to give you a brief history of some stuff that is not covered in the previous episode, I did. John Maloof is the collector who did the film and is kind of curating the prints and having stuff printed, if you will. And his estate is making money on it. Now, between you and me, anytime there's money to be made on something, that's when lawyers start coming out, because if somebody can get a chunk of something, off of something else that already exists, it's no risk. And unfortunately, that's kind of what this lawsuit has to deal with here. Anyway, all this to say that John Maloof, when he did the film, and he talks about this in the film, is that he worked with a team of genealogists, and they kind of went through to see if there were any relatives, to find out where Vivian Maier came from, because literally he started with nothing more than just a name and the fact that he knew she was a nanny and took photographs. And he dug up somebody in France by the name of Vivian Maier, I think is how you say the name, Jassot. And I'll link all this in the show notes below if you're interested in this, as well as the New York Times article. But anyway, at the time it was determined he was her closest relative. I think he was a cousin once removed. And now basically David Deal has come out and he is saying that he has found a relative that's actually the next of kin, closer than Vivian is. So anyway, it's getting interesting because there are injunctions that are being into place, and literally galleries have already started, according to the New York Times, pulling her work off the shelves. I don't know what's going on with the book sales or the film necessarily, but typically these kinds of things, and the New York Times talks about this as well, will battle out for several years in court. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. No matter whether you are of the same mindset I am about Vivian Maier, or something you're really into, and I had a lot of people who left comments on me, that were really annoyed with what I had to say about Miss Maier. And to clear it up, this is not what I think about her work. I actually think she took some wonderful pictures. I have a bigger problem with how she's being presented. A lot of these tags as the greatest photographer of all time, redefining the history of photography and that sort of thing. And I find the lawsuit particularly interesting because what happens is a lot of this is fabricated by these three collectors, mainly Maloof, who got into her work and decided they were going to start making prints from that. And this is very dangerous to do, particularly with copyright. If you do not own the copyright on the images, and no buying the negatives does not guarantee you copyright, it creates an area of complexity. And if somebody can come along and prove that somebody else actually owns the copyright, that it was not sold or it was not passed on formally, there is money to be made with something like that. What is also interesting about all this, and the New York Times didn't go into this much, but it is possible too that the state of Illinois could step in, because I believe on a state level there is a law saying basically if somebody dies and leaves their estate to no one, that it is the property indeed of the state. And so it is possible. Of course, the state of Illinois has not jumped in. This is all hypothetical, and this is just another possibility. But it is interesting to follow this and see what starts happening when all of a sudden there is a buck to be made off of something. And I think the bottom line for me, if I can insert my 2 cents here, I think Vivian Maier was very capable. I should do a review of her film as well, because I think the film was actually impressively well done. I did not expect to like it, and I actually did. I think Maloof did a wonderful job, considering he's not really a filmmaker. I thought it was interesting the entire time, and I think it was also very honest about her place in the history of photography, where you have a nanny who was an obsessive compulsive. She collected all kinds of things, stacks of newspapers. She had audio recordings recordings of political conversations she had with people. She had 8mm video that was found, and she took a ton of photographs. She happened to have a very good eye for photography, and I think she has some work in there that stands out. I think it's being kind of pimped out and sold very rapidly by the 3 collectors that are involved. But anyway, to wrap all this up, no matter what you think about her, I think it is the care and estate of the work that is in question. The saddest thing to me of the whole thing is Vivian Maier. A lot of people who knew her pretty much unanimously say in that film that, you know, she would be horrified if she knew what was going on right now. She was a very private person. She didn't want anybody to see her photographs, and the whole idea of becoming famous as a photographer would have really disturbed her a great deal. And anyway, it's never really about somebody once they die. It's about the mess they leave behind and how much it's worth, and I think that's what we're dealing with. Anyway, I'll link to all this stuff below, and I'll link to the video that we did on Vivian Maier if you're interested in seeing that, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Once again, this has been The Art of Photography. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.